What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in today's video, this is going to be geared towards players that are just joining One Piece Treasure Cruise. In this video today, I want to break down each part of the Sugo Fest and identify which characters are worth rerolling for. Now, just because a character is considered good by the community doesn't necessarily mean that it is worth rerolling for. Now, I think a lot of people already understand that the two new characters in Roger and Newgate, as well as Luffy and the Straw Hat characters, those are obviously the characters that people want to reroll for. They're the New Year legends, they're extremely powerful. I think everyone can pretty much comprehend that, but there are a lot of other characters that will help you in team building in the future, with not only the characters you would also reroll for, but other characters that you may get access to later on down the line in the future. So hopefully this one helps you out. So we're going to start off with part 1, we'll go part 2 and part 3, and just identify notable captains as well as notable crewmates, because not every unit has a good captain effect, or they're just better characters that can do what they do that you can utilize in other different ways. And just because a character is a notable captain doesn't necessarily mean that they're not also a very good crewmate as well. So hopefully we can identify that for you guys today. But let's start things off with part 1. Obviously with part 1, both the Roger Newgate as well as the Straw Hat Pirate characters are available, but obviously there is a pretty big glaring issue, and that is the fact that none of those two characters are guaranteed on this Sugo Fest. And also, on part 1 of the Sugo Fest, it is half the rate to get Roger and Newgate and Straw Hat Pirates comparatively to all the other characters on part 1. So it is very difficult to reroll for these characters. If you're wanting to go extremely deep on these banners, you don't want to go on part 1. It is just not worth it. You're not guaranteed to get those units, despite the fact that there are amazing characters available on part 1. I just don't think it is overall worth it, but there are obviously other characters in this part that are amazing to reroll for. Superclass Doflamingo is also available here. I didn't actually put Katakuri on the list because I don't believe Katakuri is a worthwhile reroll. However, I think Doflamingo, being a mono-driven captain and all of his kit together, especially with his utility captain effect and his special ability being as powerful as it is, I think it's actually a pretty worthwhile reroll character. Very good for mono-driven. And speaking of driven, you got access to King and Queen, both of which are driven and powerhouse captains. These two characters are built in such a way where you want to use one captain as Queen, the other captain as King, and that combination is extremely deadly and very powerful for clearing content. Not only do they boost driven and powerhouse, but each of which, Queen boosts also Dex, and King actually boosts quick as well, both of which are, you got Queen being an attack booster, this guy's an orb booster, he's a chain booster, your chain boundary. Both of these characters just work so well together. If you get both of these characters, you're going to be very happy, that's for sure, especially building driven and powerhouse teams. Skipping over one of the characters, speaking more on driven and powerhouse, we have this guy right here, Ace versus Akainu. Probably one of the most valuable characters that you can get, because the thing about this unit is that you've got the Akainu side of things, which can boost driven and powerhouse characters once again, but then you've got the Ace side, which boosts Shooter and Free Spirit. So the fact that this one character can actually boost 4 different classes depending on what team build you want to go for, I think that's so valuable to have. So rerolling for one of the two new legends and potentially Ace and Akainu on top of that is probably going to set you in real good stead for your account. But then also you've got Whitebeard versus Shanks, similar to Ace and Akainu, where this is a character that can buff multiple different things. You've got the Shanks side of things, which can boost Psy, Int, and Slasher characters, and then Whitebeard can boost Psy, Int, and Striker characters, both of which have great synergy with the new Newgate and Roger character, so good hybrid synergy there. So you could potentially roll for the Straw Hats and you get them, and maybe you get Shanks and Whitebeard as well. That's probably a really good start to an account. This unit is very powerful as well, really strong. But then you've also got V1 Kaido, who allows you to speed farm content, so just a lot of easy content, and you know, especially if there's like some older characters that you need to go back and farm, especially like pre-2019 kind of units, this unit is going to help you to do that super easily. You don't even need really powerful crewmates, just him as a captain will just wave clear everything. It's so powerful. Douglas Bullet doesn't see that much play in 2021 heading into 2022, but he is very notable because he is super effective against all types as a captain. and that's already good enough. He also boosts strength, quick, and int characters. His special ability is extremely powerful if you do not have to deal with normal attacks only. So I did want to put him here because he is relatively good still, and Carrot is one of those units that can work well as both either a crewmate or as a captain, allowing you to bypass defensive effects as a captain. And if you did get access to her super evolution skulls, which if you are a newer player, you're probably not going to have access to her super evolution skulls, but eventually down the line, a very powerful unit that you want to get super evolved, allowing you furthermore to speed farm content. Now, speaking of characters that are good as crewmates, these are characters that you probably don't want to use as captains too often. They can be used, but definitely better as subs for your team. Ulti page 1, if you've got a driven and a powerhouse captain, this character is awesome, allowing you to get a guaranteed 2.25 times conditional boost. Shirahoshi Manchuri is one of my favorite units that released throughout 2021. Striker Cerebral unit, quick or Psy, and has a special ability that can provide healing. Their switch effect can give you over healing, and then they've got great utility, orb changing, chain boost, the highest chain boost in the game, or one of the highest chain boosts in the game. One of the best subs that you could potentially reroll for. If you get this unit and really powerful captains, that's going to be an amazing account. Germa 66 are a really nice unit, really built around the mono Psy color. So if you can build a really good Psy team, this is going to be a really nice addition to that. Even in situations where you're not going to have super effective damage, when this character launches their special as a crewmate, they actually become the captain. They've got a really good Psy captain effect, and when they switch into the captain position during the middle of a quest, they become super effective against all types, similar to Douglas Bullet. So you can build a really powerful Psy team that can do a lot of damage, that can kind of deal with any content, which is really strong. Luffy and Sanji aren't that great as a captain, at least in my opinion. They're just really low multipliers. Their special ability, it just requires too much. Like, you need to be at exactly full HP or higher in order for you to get their 2.5 times attack boost, whereas you could just use some of these other new units that I think are just way more powerful rather than Luffy and Sanji, but it is what it is. And Crack is a really nice unit too, granting color affinity and a huge chain boost, just a really solid damage boosting effect, and has really great orb manipulation. So that's been the breakdown of part 1. Let's go ahead and move on over to part 2. Now, part 2 is a little bit different, and this is where I highly suggest people to reroll on, because part 2 has access to brand new final tap characters that were not available on part 1. So notable characters here for the captains: you've got the brand new Roger and Newgate, everyone understands how good they are, but then you've got the final tap units. You've got Yamato, who can actually hybrid with Roger and Newgate. You've got Luffy, who is a good fighter, free spirit, and a quick captain, and then you've got final tap Kid being a strength driven and striker captain, who also can synergize with Yamato as well as Roger and Newgate. So these three final tap units in particular are just ridiculously strong. All of them are amazing. Even as crewmates, they're really good options as well. Doflamingo appears once again along with King, Ace Akainu. Halloween Law is another interesting one. You want to be building an int character team with him. His captain effect has an innate ability to remove 10 turns of despair. So anytime you're inflicted with despair, he removes 10 turns of it. It's really good. His special ability is an orb boost, and after 1 turn has passed, it gives you another orb boost to your int characters. His super tight special can grant really good healing. When you launch his special as well, you can't die during that attack, which is pretty cool as well. Halloween Law just has a lot going for him. A really cool character overall, really good for building those mono int teams. Shank's crew as well is another really powerful unit, and this is one of those ones that can work very well as a crewmate. Their switch effect is basically a nerfed version of the Roger and Newgate switch effect. Still very good though, and as a captain they can remove special bind innately, which is a really cool effect, and their special ability 3 turns of a 3.5 chain lock is never going to be bad. So that's a really good effect and can actually hybrid really well once again with Roger and Newgate. Kaido is here, and also Carrot, which we talked about a little bit earlier. For part 2 though, in terms of the crewmates that you can potentially pull, I think that Bonnie's a solid option. She is mainly want to be used on an int team, but the thing about her is that you can just use any other int attack boost or any other attack booster before you use Bonnie's special, and you'll get access to her chain lock, her utility. Her super type is pretty good as well. You don't really use her as a captain that much, but has a very powerful utility and damage boosting special. Shirahoshi Manchira is once again here, and I've got to say this once again, one of the best units you can be pulling for, just such a good crewmate that helps in so many situations. Vivi and Rebecca is also here as well. This unit's kind of nice, building for Striker and Cerebral teams. Again, can work well with this unit because this unit is also Striker. This is a Striker. This is a Striker, so really good synergy with that class. They got a good switch effect for more damage. They can grant healing with their switch effect as well. Not a usable captain, I would say. Probably not the best captain, but a really good special and switch effect. Once again, Luffy, Sanji, and Cracker are also pullable. I do think part 2 might be the best overall part to reroll on due to the fact that it has Yamato, these other final tap characters, other really powerful captains. Shirahoshi Manchira also reappears here as well. I think part 2 is an incredible part to be rerolling on. And then finally we have part 3. Part 3 is definitely a little bit more tame in terms of the characters that are available. So you've got the Straw Hat Pirates available here. Yamato once again is made available, as well as Final Tap Law and also Goldie Roger. Goldie Roger is still, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 best legends in the game, despite the fact we have a brand new Goldie Roger character, which a lot of people think that it completely invalidates this unit, which is just incorrect. Both of which do different things, and both of which are still amazing. So don't get it twisted. Roger is still one of the best units to use in today's day and age. Final Tap Law also still good, boosting Dex, Slasher, and Cerebral characters as a captain. His special ability is super unique because it can grant 1.5 times increased damage taken to the enemy that bypasses all immunity. So he's the only character in the game that can do that, and that can allow you just to get 50% bonus damage for free. Really powerful special too that can give your Slasher, Cerebral, and Dex characters a 2.75 times attack boost. That's never really going to be a bad thing, at least not for a really long time. So Final Tap Law is still an easy good pick as a captain to reroll for sure. We've got Lucci as well. He's a Dex, Powerhouse, and Fighter captain. Actually a really solid unit. I've used him recently as a captain and he's been pretty incredible. And also Queen being another Dex, Powerhouse, and a Driven captain instead, of course. But Lucci's special ability, you know, providing an orb boost, and his super types being kind of unique of increasing the amount of damage your orb boost can do. But if you've got Roger Newgate that kind of like does that with his special ability anyways. Queen we've already touched up on earlier, who was already really good. Whitebeard vs Shanks is here. Halloween Mihawk, which is kind of like the counterpart to Halloween Law that we talked about in part 2. So when Halloween Law is the captain, he reduces 10 turns of despair. When Mihawk is the captain, he reduces 10 turns of paralysis. And his special ability is an attack boost, and after you hit a certain amount of perfects, you get an attack boost again in that following turn. And his super type special just gives you a full border matching slot and gives himself like tap timing bonus damage that can do like 1,000,000 damage if you hit with him. It's really cool. I think Halloween Mihawk is a really powerful character to be rerolling for, despite the fact he's kind of aged relatively well. And you know, a lot of people would say, you know, he's too old, you don't need to worry about him. Having access to this plus Law on an int team that can just get around paralysis and despair anytime you're inflicted with it is very good and very underrated in my opinion. And then Bullet, of course, we talked about him earlier on part 1. But as for notable crewmates for part 3, HalloweenPeruna is actually here. I think that this character is probably not the best captain. I guess in Kizuna Clash might be one of the instances where you could potentially use this unit, but in regular content I probably wouldn't use this character as a captain. But if you are on your burst turn, her captain effect is pretty good, because if you launch her special when she's below 80%, you get the guaranteed conditional boost against the enemy. She has really good orb change. She's a chain locker as well. Like, Perona is a really powerful crewmate that can just allow all of your teams to just do more damage than normal, which is great. Old Team Page 1, which we did talk about earlier, like, as long as you got a Driven or a Powerhouse captain, you can use their special to just give you 2.25 times bonus damage, which is also amazing. And I kind of forgot to mention earlier as well, but their switch effect and their super switch effect providing chain boundary effect is ridiculous. Though it is a relatively high super switch, I think you need to do like 6 super switches or 6 switches in general to get that super switch. It's pretty annoying, but it's still a really good unit that's basically going to be good forever, because a guaranteed conditional boost is always amazing. Now, Kaido is also a character that could be used as a captain, depends on the situation. I think a lot of people are probably opting to use him as a crewmate these days because they're just better captains to use. But the thing about Kaido is that he can grant the increased damage taken to the enemy, but it's a 2 times boost. We talked about Law earlier, which does a 1.5 times increased damage taken, but it does bypass immunity. Kaido's does not bypass immunity, but if you're in the situation where the enemy does not have a full immunity buff, and you launch this special, you just double any damage that you do to the enemy for that turn. It's incredibly strong. And he also gives you a full border matching slots when you launch the special too. It's really, really good. Germa we talked about earlier. This is V1 Shirahoshi Mancherry. Not as good as V2 in my opinion, but a very unique special that can remove 2 debuffs by 10 turns for free, which is good. It's a nice effect to have. And then Onami, which especially after Super Evolution is a lot better, which is a damage dealing special. It actually gives you color affinity, it reduces your cooldowns, and a 2x attack boost versus defense down characters, which of course she is able to proc, and she has a really good support effect as well. They can attach to Sanji and Kinemon, and when that unit uses their special, it just reduces all enemies defense to 0 for 1 turn, so you can use different strategies for that. But Onami, a really nice crewmate to have for sure. But I think overall, there's a lot of great different parts to be pulling on in this Sugo Fest. Now, part 1 does have a lot of really cool characters that kind of mix and match from parts 2 and 3, but the problem with part 1 is you don't get access to the other super Sugo Fest exclusives. So in part 2, you've got Yamato, Luffy, and Kid. Part 3, you've got Yamato, Law, and Roger. And the thing about it is these characters are only pullable on other super Sugo Fests. If you're re-rolling, in my opinion, you should be re-rolling for super Sugo Fest exclusives, because the only other time they're going to be around is during big celebratory events, and because we're having one right now, we're probably not going to have one for a really long time after this. So I think it is a very wise decision for players out there to re-roll for these Super Sugo Fest exclusives. I think part 2 is the best part because you've got like really good final tap characters in, I mean, Roger Whitebeard, Yamato, and Kid. Luffy's probably the least desirable of these ones here. You've got Dofi for Driven, you got a good Driven captain here, good Driven captain here, and you've also got Ace for Shooter and Free Spirit, good Int captain, good all-round captain, speed farming captain, one of the best subs in the game with Shirahoshi Mancherry, Cracker's good damage boosting, and then Bonnie's good utility as well. I think part 2 makes the most sense, but it really depends on what you want to go for, what kind of characters you want to use. Because over on part 3, you've got access to not only Yamato once again, but also Law and Roger, which are still some of the best units in the game, as well as, you know, Queen, who's really good, Whitebeard vs Shanks is amazing still, and then you've got, you know, characters like Ulti Page 1, Germa, Onami, Perona, V1 Shirahoshi Mancherry. So it just kind of depends on what you want to go for. I think either part 2 or part 3 makes the most sense to be re-rolling on. But that is going to wrap up this video today. Hopefully you guys learned something, get a bit of insight from that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But on that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.